Oof. That is leaking pretty good. Looks like most of that is dripping out of the bell housing. Let's investigate. What do you think, Juno? You hate this dozer yet? Yeah. Guys, welcome back to Spank Ranch Garage. We're out here t-shirting it in March because it's like 60 degrees and we don't get a lot of these great sunny days right now, so it's time to burn this day doing something I don't want to do. And that's working on this crappy old John Deere 450B again. I'm in the middle of a blade job. You guys will see videos coming out about that, but what needs to happen right now, unfortunately, is the engine needs to come out. We have a hellacious rear main seal leak, or rear oil pan leak, or rear main whatever, something going on badly in the back of the engine, where this thing will leak. I didn't realize how bad it was until I parked it up on pavement for a little while. It probably drips a quart a week out onto the ground. It's insane. It's so much so that I've only used this dozer maybe 2 or 3 hours since I've owned it, and I've had to add, I don't know, a gallon and a half of oil already. The other thing is the actual engine clutch is seized, it's frozen, and I've been getting away without it. I don't really need it because I use the HLR clutches, but while we're in there, we'll free that up too. Actually closer than I thought. I wonder if this hoist will even lift this engine with it all the way out. That's going to be a whole experience right out of China. If I offset it like that, that actually will work. All right, that makes me feel a little better right off the bat. It looks like I will be able to do this without pulling the C-frame. I kind of stopped my blade project midway. I never put it back together because I'm like, I'm just gonna take it off again to get this engine out. But it looks like at full reach, this cherry picker will get to the center of that engine. So it'll be a little finagling, but I think it's gonna be a hell of a lot better than trying to drop this C-frame. Getting it off is one thing, getting it back on is the next. It's probably 1,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds. Me working out here by myself, getting the pins lined up and in, just not feeling that, so awesome. Let's get tearing this thing apart and let's get this engine out. We're gonna try to limit our, while we're in here, side projects. But I am excited to get this nose off so I can put new belts on this because those are a turd to change. Check the water pump bearing, that kind of stuff. You really do not want to bust up any of the coolers on this. The oil cooler, the radiator, they're all no longer available, and I see a lot of guys looking for good rads and good oil coolers online, and they're paying some pretty good astronomical prices for them because there's only so many of them left. So we'll be careful lifting this off to not bang up any of this fragile 50-year-old equipment. It's actually got a remand rad on it. This might be the only nice part on this entire dozer. Everything's just beat. How the hell is the cooling fan so bent up? But some other things you'll notice here, it's good to get into this every now and again, is cooler looks okay from this side. That oil cooler's caked. You're getting like no flow through that. So we'll clean all that out while we're in here. So there's gonna be a lot of while we're in here, but just like everything else, hopefully I'm only doing this once. All the birds think it's spring, but it ain't. Lift this $600 rad out here. I think these are power steering lines, This has to come apart and then come apart above the transmission. I think there's a power steering pump on the front of this motor. It's like another auxiliary hydraulic circuit that runs your steering cylinders, if I understand right. And I think like early 450s had a different setup. They had it was built into the hydraulic pump or something, and now that's separate. I don't know, something like that. Whew. That is a behemoth of a starter. God damn. All right, it's time to hit the lower bell housing bolts. Oh, god damn. That freaking hurt. Even this is soaked in oil. Is that a clue? I don't know. What's interesting is the back of the flywheel is dry, which I figured if that rear main was really whipping, it'd be really whipping. So I hope we're even doing this for a reason here. Who knows? That one's dry. Is that a clue? I don't know. Stay tuned. This is already going to suck enough. The last thing I need is the hoist wheels fighting me on every little pebble. All right, boys. This engine's just hanging now. Let's get it the hell out. Guys, honestly not bad. I took the hood off of this thing at 11:48 this morning, and the engine's out at 1:25 p.m. So that's just a couple beers and we're out of there. Really as bad of a job as I expected. However, I'm sure putting it back in won't be as smooth. But what's interesting is everything in here is very dry. When you get down here, you see we have a pretty hefty leak. And it could be as simple as a pan gasket, but I think it's actually this plate, this like bell housing adapter plate that the rear main goes into. I think that's leaking between the block and that. That's at least what I was able to see laying on the ground underneath this thing. Well, that bolt's not even tight on the pan. It may even be just a pan gasket. That's a lot of work for a pan gasket, but this clutch is seized up and the fingers are collapsed. So we got to take care of this. Plus we got to handle all these hoses and crap, all the disasters that happened in here. The inside of the bell housing looks really good. It's dry. I don't really want to have to ever get into these pumps and things in here, so it's pretty nice. It feels good. It's nice and tight, no play. The pilot bearing surface is in really good shape. The throwout bearing, shot. So we'll do that while we're in here, no problem. But otherwise, it's just cleaning, replacing hoses. But we got some crap to fix here. This whole pump coupler is seized up. It would be very hard to change a belt. So we'll get that done. I'll put a spare belt. We'll clamp it in here so that way there's already a belt on for next time. And all these other hoses that are next to impossible to get to in the Dozer. Look how swollen and oil swollen these are. I mean, everything's just waiting to be a blowout. So we'll take care of all this crap while the engine's out. There's the serial there. 4219 DT, made in USA. It's a very motorcycle-y day out here. Also looks like the dipstick seal is shot. This is pissing everywhere. So this thing's just a leaky turd. We will get ahead and clean this up, make this engine great again. What we're dealing with here, this clutch has never disengaged. So even when I adjusted it, as far as you could, the fingers do not move. They're just locked up. And now I see that the fingers are bottomed out. So something is bent here or wrong, or the clutch cover was seized and then when stepped on really hard, it bent the fingers. I don't know. Nothing wants to move here. I also see that this clutch is just super rusted up. So is this thing just that far out of adjustment? I mean, if that's the case, that means somebody put this in and never had it right. Yeah, there might be nothing wrong with this pressure plate, and that'd be awesome if that's the case. Oh yeah, baby, because we're blowing the budget on this turd. So if it's not obvious, this clutch hasn't slipped on this flywheel in a long time. Never in my ownership. I mean, look at this rust. This clutch hasn't worked forever. But with the way the John Deere HLR works, you can actually get away with it. Tell you what, that rear main seal actually looks dry. Oh! Oh, it's heavy. Look at that rear main, dry as a bone. And that's what we're in here to fix, so that is not the problem. This old girl cleaned up pretty good, actually. I see one of the problems. The whole oil pan is just RTV'd on. Someone had this apart, gasket formed it. I really wonder, is it just the pan leaking? Is that all we gotta go? I'd hate to have this whole thing out and not do this plate here, but it would also maybe be a little foolish to disturb a non-leaking rear main seal on something this old. And to do this plate, I probably need to put a new seal in it, unless that just comes off. I'm not sure. But otherwise, yeah, you can see here, this thing's just an RTV nightmare with the oil pan. Somebody was in here, and you gotta wonder, why was the pan down? Somebody rolling bearings into it, maybe. I don't know. It doesn't knock, doesn't make any noises, runs good, so I don't have any reason to suspect that I need to go down that path. But yeah, all these hoses here are in real bad shape. They're all oil softened. Found a dipstick is actually just like screwed in, so I'm gonna fix that leak. Put a little RTV on that maybe. I can see in here behind the fan. Sun is killer today, guys. You can see there's hoses up in here that you'd never get to in the Dozer, so I need to replace all those. With the pan dropped, I didn't clean this yet. Look how clean it is. We had no RTV bonding here. Just laying there. It's like some kind of blue RTV. It's probably not the right stuff for the job. But I'm glad I dropped it, because you see this impression here, this round impression. Well, I learned that the pan is smashed in on the bottom. It's actually smashed up into the oil pickup, and this is kind of bent. And that's what that mark on the bottom of the pan is. So really the pan is touching this thing from here over, basically starving this. So it was only pulling oil through this back section here. So we'll pound that pan out, and we'll get back to full oil flow. Luckily, I don't believe there's been any damage. Like I said, this thing really runs good. Another thing to note is, if you're curious, the full mark is literally about an 1/8 inch above this bottom surface here. So if you had one of these Dozers with a bad oil pan gasket and you park it always on level ground, if you ran a little lower on oil, you'd probably get away with it. How's that looking to you? Full flow? I bet that hardly flows. And these are my power steering lines, I believe. No, those are cooling, oil cooler lines. That's what that is, I guess. Yeah, oil cooler lines. So that's totally pinched off oil cooler line. That needs to be fixed. We got to do better than that. This line here, coolant, it's all cracked up and crappy. This belt, total trash. It's actually rubbing on this, and it's almost all the way through it. So that's a big catch right there. That would have boned me so bad. So we got to do some line bending on that. This is power steering, this pump here. So this line that I capped, and then it runs, it actually sucks off the transmission line, I think that was, or maybe it was the main hydraulic line, I don't remember. But all this little crap, let's get all these replaced before they end up ruining a day down the road. Oh man. Bearing shot in this alternator. You know, it's like everything you touch is broken, so where do we draw the line here? Let's see. Oh yeah. Yeah, this alternator is pretty rough. That front bearing's out of it. It does still make power, surprisingly, so it's like, all right, are we gonna rebuild this or replace it? Undetermined. I don't know if I like seeing all this clamps and tape everywhere too. I don't know if there's pinholes under here. I'm gonna have to check these out. I mean, these are the kind of little things that absolutely ruin a day of work. If you have to fix this crap when it's in the machine, you're just gonna have a really bad time. Ooh, thank you. You are the best. Can't wait to crack into this.
They're not both yours.
Hold on, pick it. I'll need the plate.
How's it going?
Getting closer. Might have to go to Autos now and try to get some crap.
Jeez. I thought you had to go to Lowe's. Something.
I ended up not having to. What do you think, Juno? Tired of me buying old crap that requires way too much work? Yeah. Well, I slid this little Band-Aid back and I'll be dipped. There's a pinhole. So let's get that welded up. Alright, so here's what we're going for there. Nice sweeps, no kinking. The lines, they don't touch the intake manifold, they don't touch the alternator bracket. No kinking down here, everything flows good. One more hose to go here, and then we've got hoses on the hydraulic side, but I'm just gonna do the coolant stuff today, get a belt and probably an alternator, wrap this up. All right, so I just got the flywheel back from the machine shop. They did a pretty good job on it. They weren't able to get all the surface pitting out because it was so rusty, but I think this will be all right. Really, as long as this clutch holds and doesn't slip, that's all I need. Like I said numerous times, we don't use it with the HLR trans. Now, if I had something PTO driven on the back of this dozer, like a winch, it would be nice to have a working engine clutch, but otherwise I really don't need it. It's more of a nice to have, make shifting gears a little easier. So I'm not gonna machine this for real or do anything like that. It ain't gonna slip, it's gonna be fine. So we're in a holding pattern because the oil pan gasket, throwout bearing, pilot bearing, and I ordered a thermostat and a couple other little things. It's all going to be here next Monday. So I won't get to work on the dozer this weekend, but there is some stuff we can do, and one of them is the clutch. So we know I needed a new clutch disc. Did you know I needed two? Well, I don't need two, but I was looking for one of these clutches, and this is the Deere 11-inch with the spring dampener in the center. Unfortunately, these things are like $240. It's about the best you can do shopping around, and that's aftermarket. I don't know what a Deere one would cost. So it's funny, so I found one on eBay out of the box. The guy said it's a brand new clutch, which I believe, brand new, just doesn't have the box for it. So I bought it. And then what shows up is this box that's extremely heavy. And I was like, oh crap, this isn't what I ordered. And I opened the box and there's two John Deere clutch discs in it. And I got it for $100 delivered. So I got $450 worth of clutches for $100 and they're brand new. So I'll take it. Organic, full face clutch, better than what you're gonna get at the grocery store. All right, so now that's all ran down on there like it would be, installed correctly. And I can already tell that the fingers are in a way happier position than they were before. So part of the reason this clutch was seized before is because it was allowed to sit and rust up, and then this center layer here became thicker and the rust actually buckled the brake lining off of the clutch. So that's why we had to replace it. But now we need to set this finger height correctly. There is a John Deere tool to do this. I don't have it, but luckily the owner's manual or the service manual does give you the dimensions. And if I remember right, the dimensions are, these fingers should be 2 inches above the flat surface of the flywheel here. So I think with some 1, 2, 3 blocks, a couple of them, whatever we got to do. We'll put a straight edge across here and we'll get these measurements in and we'll get this dialed in. All right, so what I got to stack here, these are 1, 2, 3 blocks are used for machining, but essentially all that means is they're 1 inch thick, 2 inches wide, 3 inches tall, and they're precision ground to be pretty close to that. So this stack up right here is a 4-inch stack up. This is a 4-inch stack up, and we know that the direction in this direction is 2 inches. So 4 minus 2 is 2. So if the straight edge clears this and everything's good, that means we are at a 2-inch finger height. And right off the bat, you can see that these fingers are sitting pretty low. That's 2 of the fingers there. We will rearrange our blocks to come this direction, come across to that finger, because the fingers are all independently adjustable, so you have to check each one. You want them to be pretty even. And we're still pretty low there. So tightening these bolts raises the finger. So I'm gonna start with, I don't know, maybe a half a turn. See where that lands us. Set up my block. Set up this block. And we're not nearly there yet. So we'll hit her with another half a turn. Maybe we'll go a little more than that today. Obviously having the tool will be a little faster, but for the fact that I'm going to do this once or twice in my lifetime, hopefully, not needed. Getting close. But anyway, that's the process. We'll run all the way around the flywheel, get all 3 fingers dialed in, then we'll hit them with the hammer, exercise them a little bit, check them again, and it should be good. Yeah, last thing, don't forget to put your clutch clips back on. There you go. They kind of snap into place when they're in there right. All right, it's exactly 7 days later since we pulled this engine. All the replacement parts are here, so I'd like to get started on it. It's a nice Sunday morning. We just got like clobbered with rain last night. We got like an inch of rain in a couple hours. So hopefully everything's capped up and plugged up enough here. I see that I did not cap the air cleaner. I'll probably open that up, make sure it's not full of water. But anyway, I did have a chance to do a little painting and cleaning in here. You know, pressure wash the inside of the frame rails, so they're actually like, you know, there was so much mud and crap in here. Bell housing looks good. And then I touched up the motor paint as well. Some of that was coming off, so gave her the old spray bomb refurb there. Hopefully she ain't full of water. I think we're good. We got the Breckenridge cup on the exhaust and the spray paint cap there. And so let's give this oil pan the love that it deserves. You can see this witness mark here. Here's where the pan was smashed up into the oil pickup tube. She's all blown in there, so we'll get that hammered back straight. They were running this dozer with no belly pan skid plate, so I guess it doesn't take long for a rock or a stump or something to come up in here and collapse this pan. So, you know, is there a gasket under there? Oh, there is. So we've got a variety of sealing technologies here. We've got a gasket and blue RTV and black RTV. So real shocker that this was leaking. Another snag I need to manage is I don't have a clutch alignment tool for these John Deeres. And I am highly doubting that any of my automotive ones are going to cross over. I don't. Krusty Krab or something. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Whew. Just made that tool long enough. Just made her long enough. But it'll do the job. My marks are there. And these marks are here. Looking through the service manual for torque specs, and I saw that these clutch fingers are 2-inch plus or minus 30 thousandths, not 3 thousandths. So here I am thinking ahead to be all precise. 30 thousandths, you can probably eyeball that. Just hit it with a tape measure and you'll be good. So once again, overthinking things. So no matter how good your alignment tool is, gravity's always going to want to do its thing, and that clutch disc is going to want to fall a little bit. So if you can't put this thing in and out and it just glides in perfectly, you're probably not there. So you kind of got to lift up on it a little bit while you clamp everything. But this, knowing how precise I made the tool and how easily this goes right in, I have no worries that this isn't perfect and spot on. So now I got to figure out how to get this throwout bearing off. I don't know how well on there these things are. There we go. All right, that was easy. A little bit of grease on these throwout bearing forks here ain't gonna hurt nobody. Okay. There we go. That's that, just that simple. Anyway, here's a good look at the HLR adjustment arm here. So when you push on this clutch pedal, you're rotating this whole shaft with these fingers on it that push the clutch throwout bearing, but you're also turning this and pushing this thing upwards, which is moving this, which goes back into the HLR portion of the trans, and that's what's, you know, firing up your line pressure and everything else. Wow, I'm seeing something very interesting right now. There's a date code on this. It says 7/28 7/22/88. 1988. What the frick? 88? I wonder if someone's been in here and refurbished this transmission at some point. Something. I mean, why would you replace the front cover? I don't know. And did John Deere even make, would they still be casting these in 1988? I don't think so. And it's not 68. That's interesting. If anybody has any clue what that's about, I'd love to know. Do you know, why is it raining when they said it wasn't going to rain? This oil pan paint can't dry quick enough. I got work to do. All right, pans up. Put a little RTV in the corner where the front and rear covers meet the block, as you would on any engine. But otherwise, we're going just raw dog on the gasket. And hopefully, the engine is drier than when we took it out. That's the goal here. Boy. Oh. We are really pushing this Chinese engine hoist here. We ain't that far off. We're probably touching that input shaft at this point. gravy, come on. Oh yeah, that's a good move. That's a good move. All right, let me get something to turn this crankshaft. And I think we're looking pretty close here. There we go. See, there's no load on the transmission shaft. So if it's just touching the clutch and you're turning it, it may just come along with it. It's gonna be a little tricky to get those splines lined up. It's gonna put this piece of 1/2" all thread in here, kind of use it like an alignment dowel, and I may be able to still get that functionality out of it, but I was hoping to thread it into the block. And I don't have any 9/16 all thread kicking around, but now that's in there. That should align me. Same deal over here. Put this turd through and into there. All right, so now I got 2 call and alignment dowels. Now this motor's got to come up a smidge. Maybe something like that. Getting the splines and pilot bearing aligned was just an absolute bear. Mrs. Spanky thought I was having a seizure out here because I was getting so mad. I've probably been humping this engine for an hour and a half straight. Like, my lower back is sore. It's just, that was a bear. But I ended up pulling the whole thing back out again, putting my clutch alignment tool back in. I started second guessing myself whether the clutch disc was lined up right. I got a service plug out of the transmission. I had a bore scope in there. I'm trying to see what the hell is going on. I don't know what the holdup was. The second time I dropped it in and everything lined up, it went together in 5 minutes. So I'm happy. I don't know what happened, but she's on her dowel pins now, all the way in, tested the clutch pedal. It all works good. Just got to tighten up the bolts and we're there. But that was an absolute doozy. I would definitely recommend having another person here with you if you're going to do this. And I don't know what to do about a hoist. You got to get one that's a little narrower because the legs on this hoist touch the tracks. There's no way to move left or right at all. They just fit. And it's so tight that when you want to pull out, the casters can't even turn around because they're hitting the tracks. So between that, this engine being heavy as crap, the clutch being difficult to align, it is just a doozer. Wow. It actually comes out, it actually comes clean pretty easy, but it is bad. I'm wondering how much of that is diesel soot from the exhaust not sealing well to the stack, and the cooling fans on these pull engine air and push it through the cores out the front of the machine. So every time you put this under load, you're taking a little soot and blowing it through the rad. And over 40 years or so, I could see, yeah, that could add up, I guess. You guys know what I'm missing? Cooling fan. Dang it. Yeah, that's got to go on first. So I'm at a point where we can at least try to start it up. Cooling system's buttoned up. All the hard to get to transmission cooling is buttoned up. I left the old crappy hose here and here for the filter because I have to redo that once I put the nose piece back on anyway. So I'll do that then. Let's get some Brotella in this girl. And hopefully we're not dumping oil all over the ground. That would mean our first mission was successful. And then if it still holds coolant and transmission fluid and hydraulic fluid, and it charges the battery, I'd say this is a win-win-win. I checked my spreadsheet. I'm about 360 bucks into this job, what you see in this video. So that's replacing the engine clutch, throw-out bearing, pilot bearing, thermostat, thermostat gasket, oil pan gasket, and then every coolant hose other than the main rad hoses, all the other little oil hoses that you can get to while you're in here. All of that is replaced. And those things you can never really see the value. It's more of a reliability, peace of mind thing. Those old hoses may have lasted another 10 years. They may have lasted another 10 minutes. Some of them weren't looking so hot, but hopefully this will be the only time I have to have the engine out of this particular dozer. That would be the goal here. I should have never lost prime between the injection pump and the injectors. Just the filter side of it here. So I loosened that line, and I have a little cheater cap, fuel cap with a Schrader valve on it. I just put compressed air on it and push it through. There is a lever on the lift pump. You could do this by hand, but it's just very easy and controllable to do it with the compressed air. I just use a tiny little Milwaukee tire pump. That way you're not going to damage anything. The flow is so little, but it'll help us push all the air out of this. See a couple air bubbles coming out, but we look pretty clean. Really get her squirting. Oh yeah, see, that was all airlock. And that's good enough. That's enough fuel on the ground for tonight. And the system's bled, just that easy. First thing I'm checking for is fuel shutoff solenoid. Listen for it. It's pretty audible on these Master pumps. So that's working, that's good. That way if it were to run away, because I screwed something up, we do have a positive fuel shutoff, at least if it's a fuel runaway. Throttle cable, all that's free. We'll leave her at an idle. Pull the cup off the exhaust. Fire in the hole, let's see what I screwed up. Oh! And we are dumping trans fluid everywhere. Oh. I see. You gotta put a clamp on that, idiot. Yeah, we got to do something about that top coolant hose. That cannot be factory that way. That'd be a day ruiner. That fan is dangerously close to it. Also noticed the belt occasionally slaps the pickup tube for the power steering pump back there where it fits above the oil cap there. It's really tight. So I don't know what's up with that. Not a fan of it. Otherwise, got all the leaks resolved. She looks really good. Just cleaning off some of the leaks I had, just watching them, make sure they're not re-leaking. The engine's warm. Oh yeah. Yeah, the thermostat's about to open. Not that we had any cooling issues before that. And you look under here, nice shiny new dry oil pan. There would have been a good puddle out of the rear of the engine by now with the old setup. So looks pretty good to me. Checked out the engine clutch, all that works as it should. You can hear the HLR trans just quiet up immediately when you push the clutch all the way in, meaning it is disengaging. Selecting gears on the back 4 gears here is very easy. It was not before when that clutch was not working. So that's cool. I will have to go through all the HLR adjustment again on this, but I already have a video on that. I won't waste your guys' time with that. All right, guys, let's wrap this one up here. So we got this engine out, we fixed every leak on it, we put a new clutch in it, we did a bunch of preventative maintenance, new belt, we ended up buying an alternator. She charges great, all the hoses are replaced, everything is leak-free now, essentially from the dashboard forward on this dozer, which is a pretty big accomplishment for something that's this old and this abused. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching Spank Grant's Garage. I'll see you really soon.